Shalom, YouTube. Shalom, YouTube. In case the first part cut, we will be getting into the book of Daniel, one of the most interesting of the Jewish prophets, and very, very interesting book. So, for context, the book of Daniel happens after the Babylonian captivity of Israel. God had sent many prophets and gave many warnings to the Jews ever since the days of Moses, about 900 years before this. Many warnings ever since the days of Moses. The land will spew you out if you disobey the covenant, and I will cast you away to lands far away. You will be taken very far from the Holy Land if you disobey the covenant, if you break the Torah, if you don't keep the statutes. So if you want to know more about that, read the book of Deuteronomy. The book of Deuteronomy is also known as the book of the law in the Bible, and it tells you exactly what God expects from us. You could also read Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers for more context, more details. But the book of Deuteronomy is just the law and a history lesson from Moses before he dies. So, context of this is after the book of Jeremiah. This is at the end of 2 Chronicles. This is at the end of 2 Kings. God had sent many messengers, many prophets, gave many warnings. The Jews refused to heed them, and they were cast to Babylon for their paganism. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, who I believe is the son of King Josiah, who is actually my favorite. If you read 2 Kings 22 and 23, King Josiah actually reads the book of the law, and he rends his clothes, and he's like, we have to get back to the Torah immediately. God is going to destroy us otherwise. And the book of the law seems to be Deuteronomy, which is just from start to finish. It's the importance of the Torah, what's going to happen if we reject it, what's going to happen if we keep it. Definitely the most important book of the Torah by far is Deuteronomy, and it's one that every Muslim, Jew, and Christian should read multiple times. The book of Deuteronomy literally says, read it every single day. Write it down and read it every day. So, Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, onto Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of God. See, because I heard rumors that the Ark of the Covenant, that Jeremiah and Baruch, that they hid the Ark of the Covenant, and when they came back to look for it, it was missing. And I believe this is the last time anybody knew where the Ark of the Covenant was. Part of the vessels of the house of God, and he carried it into the land of Shinar, which is also Babylon, and to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spoke unto Ashpenaz, the master of the eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. So this is the tongue that Abraham's fathers spoke before Abraham left the land of the Chaldeans and became a Jew. The king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat, and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were of the children of Judah Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave the names. For he gave unto Daniel the name Belteshazzar, which Bel is another name for Baal, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your face worse liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall you endanger my head to the king. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, test your servants, I ask you, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. And let our countenances be looked upon before you, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat, and as you see, deal with your servants. So he consented to them in this matter, and he tested them 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days their countenances were fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them was Among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they stood before the king. And in all manner of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in his realm. And Daniel continued even unto the first year of King Cyrus. Is that when he's supposed to have died? And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed the dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. And the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, which I believe is another name for Aramaic. O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will show you the interpretation. And the king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If you will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made into a waste. But if you show the dream and the interpretation thereof, you shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that you wish to gain time, because you see that the thing is gone from me. But if you will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For you have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell the dream, and I shall know that you can show me the interpretation thereof. And the Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, lord, or ruler that asks such a thing of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. It is a rare thing that the king requires, and there is none that can show it before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with the flesh. So the gods of the Babylonians are the fallen angels. It's the Anunnaki pantheon. It's Enki, it's Enlil, it's Inanna, Anu, Nergal, all these different pagan gods. This is the pantheon that they worship, and these are the fallen angels who came down on Mount Hermon and Enoch. The book of Enoch is not... It belongs in the Bible. It's in the book of Jubilees, and it's quoted in the book of Jude in the New Testament. So he's saying we can't help you. Only the pagan gods like Enki can help you. A lot of people think that Enki and Enlil are the same as Yahweh, and this is not the case whatsoever. But just like Satan twisted Scripture in the desert with Jesus, so too do they twist Scripture to make it suit the pagan agenda, where it's like, oh, no, actually, you're Noah? His real name is Zisudra. Yeah, okay, well, they can believe what they want to believe, but the Bible's undefeated. Their gods aren't even worshipped openly anymore. Their gods are worshipped in pagan occult secret societies. So whose God is the true God? So, except for the gods whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, so they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning the secret, that Daniel and his servants would not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God Yahweh forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changed the times and the seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He reveals the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, O you God of my fathers, who has given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me now what we desired of you. For you have now made known unto us the king's matter. Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, destroy not the wise men of Babylon, bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah that will make known unto the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, are you able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king has demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that reveals secrets, and makes known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. The latter days, okay? Go on Bible Gateway, type latter day, and search it. There are many important Bible verses about latter days, and this is one of them. This is an end times prophecy. Latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed are these. As for you, O king, your thoughts came into your mind upon your bed, what should come to pass hereafter, and he that reveals secrets makes known to you what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation of the king, that you might know the thoughts of your heart. You, O king, saw and behold. So I'd like to say one thing. Right after this chapter, the king makes a giant graven image of a statue. So I think the king, in the beginning, he heard the interpretation, but afterwards, he misunderstood it. We'll get to that. Behold, a great image, this great image whose brightness was excellent, stood before you, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, and the breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, and his feet part iron and part clay. You saw till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, and brake them into pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, so no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven has he given unto your hand, and has made you ruler over all of them. You are this head of gold. After you shall arise another kingdom inferior to you, the Medo-Persians, Darius, Cyrus. And another kingdom, another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth, which I believe is the Greeks, Greco-Roman civilization. Because the Greco-Roman pantheon is the same religion. Like, the Greek gods and the Roman gods are the same. Rome was founded by Trojans, so it could be said that the third kingdom of brass, which will bear rule over the entire earth, that could be considered the Greco-Roman Empire. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaks in pieces and subdues all things, and as iron that breaks all these things shall it break in pieces and bruise. So I think the Iron Kingdom, I think this is the United Kingdom, England, conquered the entire world, empire where the sun does not set. And then you saw the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as you saw the iron mixed with clay. I think this is the United States, the mix, the melting pot, the mixed empire, the divided empire. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And where you saw iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, the mixing pot, but they shall not cleave to one another, as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, for it shall stand forever. For as much as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is true. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel. See, that's how you know he didn't get it. You're not supposed to worship prophets. He worshipped Daniel, and he commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. And the king answered unto Daniel and said, Of a truth it is that your God is the God of gods, and a Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, seeing that you could reveal this secret. Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave unto him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of the king that he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. So what does he do? He makes an image. He makes a graven image. He makes a giant statue right after. I'm the golden head on the statue. That's awesome. I'm going to make a statue that people worship me. So, just because you're among the church people, just because you're hearing the Bible, doesn't mean it's actually going to work on you. You have to really dedicate yourself to the craft. You have to give yourself over completely to God. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits, so about 90 feet. A cubit is the distance from your middle finger to your elbow. So 60 cubits, 60 cubits, and the breadth was 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. The princes, governors, captains, judges, treasurers, counselors, sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And whoever will not fall down and worship shall the same hour be cast in the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Therefore at that time when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. For you, O king, have made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever will not fall down and worship, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have set over all the affairs of the provinces of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded you. They serve not your gods, nor worship the golden image which you have set up. And Nebuchadnezzar in his rage and fury commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if you be ready, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the image which I have made, well. But if you will not worship, you shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer you in this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto you, O king, that we will not serve your gods, nor worship the golden image which you have set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the oven, the furnace, 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments, and they were cast in the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flames of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spake, and said unto his counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. Jesus was there, and I can prove it in the next few verses. Now, there's many apocrypha texts about this. If you read the apocryphal chapters of Daniel, the Song of Azariah, I think it was, what happened was that God made it into a mist. The fire was not hot. It was like a cool mist. All it did was burn off their ropes, and they were walking around in the center of the fire with Jesus. And why do I think this happened? Because Nebuchadnezzar tested God. Will your God be able to save you from my hand? And they said, if he wants to, yes. And even if he chooses not to, we choose not to worship your gods. So because Nebuchadnezzar tested God, that's how this happened. I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. And Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace, and spoke, and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their head singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. Just like what happened with John the Apostle. They threw him into boiling oil, nothing happened, and so they threw him into island of Patmos because they wanted to get rid of him. Because they realized that John was not able to be killed because of the promise Jesus made to him in John chapter 21. If I will that he tarries until I return, what is that to you? Follow me, Peter. And then there was a rumor among the disciples that he would not die. So, he didn't die. They threw him into boiling oil, and the story was known. Reported as early, I could find as like 150 AD. It was reported that John was cast into boiling oil. Nothing happened to him. And everybody in the Colosseum who saw it in the days of Domitian the emperor, fell down and worshipped Yahweh and became Christians. So, you can't kill them, throw them on an island. Nor had the smell of fire been passed on them. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel, the angel of the Lord, the Son of God. He has sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own. Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that can deliver after this sort. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar the king, unto all people, nations, and language that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high God has wrought toward me. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house, and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my head and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But at last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, Baal, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, and before him I told the dream, saying, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubles you. Tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. Thus were the visions of my head in my bed. I saw it and behold it. So I want to say that this is actually, it's not just about him. It's not just about Nebuchadnezzar. This is actually an end-time prophecy that we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of end-times prophecy. We're seeing that if you don't worship the golden God, that you're going to be cast into the fire. That's going to happen in Revelation. We're seeing the vision of the final empire being replaced with the Christian kingdom, the mountain, the rock that shatters the mountain. We're going to see that too. And now we're seeing the final 7 years of tribulation. I saw and behold a tree, an empire, in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height reached unto heaven. Well, we're launching a lot of satellites. We're launching a lot of rockets up into heaven, so we're right up there to the peak of heaven almost. The height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heaven dwelt in the boughs thereof, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher, an angel. The watchers is what the fallen angels were also referred to. The watchers are heavenly angels. I think it's the stars, honestly. The stars, the host, the watchers, it seems like the exact same thing. We see this in Revelation 12. Satan cast down 1/3 of the stars with him. 1/3 of the fallen angels come with Satan. I saw and behold a watcher, and a holy one came down from heaven, a star. He cried aloud and said, Cut down the tree and cut off his branches, shake off the leaves, and scatter his fruit. Let the beast get away from under it, and the fowls from his branches. So is this the rapture? Get out the good, because we're going to cut it down. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, and the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from a man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. So 7 times is 7 years, although I have read that because Daniel was praying so thoroughly for Nebuchadnezzar, this only happened in 7 months. The matter is by the decree of the watchers, the angels, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whoever he will, and sets up over it the basest of men. So, New World Order is going to get chopped down, and for a period of 7 times, 7 years, we're going to become animalistic. But before that, the animals that live underneath the tree will be taken away, the rapture. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now you, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof, for as much as all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but you are able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for 1 hour, and his thoughts troubled him. The king spake and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble you. Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, the dream be to those that hate you, and the interpretation thereof to your enemies. The tree which you saw, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had built their habitation. It is you, O king. You are grown and become strong, for your greatness is grown and reached unto heaven, and your dominion to the end of the earth. And whereas the king saw a watcher and a holy one coming down from heaven, and saying, Cut down the tree and destroy it, yet leave the stump of the roots thereof in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass, and the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which is come upon my lord the king. They shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and there you shall eat grass as ox, and they shall wet you with the dew of heaven until 7 times pass over you, till you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whoever he will. And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, your kingdom shall be sure unto you. After that you shall have known that the heavens do rule. Therefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto you, and break off your sins by righteousness, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of your tranquility. All this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. The king spake and said, Is not this great Babylon, which I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power, and for the honor of my majesty? While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from you. And they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make you eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whoever he will. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. So he became like a man. He became like an animal. And remember, the ox and the eagle, these are important symbols that come later on into this. So he basically became a foreshadowing of what's going to happen during the final empire. The bear, the dragon, or they just call it a beast, but the bear, the eagle, the lion, the ox. At the end of days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes unto heaven, and my understanding returned unto me, and I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that lives forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he does according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand, or say unto him, What do you? What do you do? At the same time my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom my honor and brightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth, and his ways judgment, and those who walk in his pride. In pride he is able to abase. He's able to humble those who walk in pride. Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, while he was tasting the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels, which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. And they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines drank in them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and of stone. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaister of the wall of the king's palace. So they're using holy instruments of the temple of Yahweh, and now we're seeing a hand, either God or an angel of his, writing. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against another. The king cried aloud. Joints of his loins were loosed. Does that mean he crapped himself? The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, Whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and with a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing nor make known to the king the interpretation thereof. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changed in him, and his lords were astonished. And the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not your thoughts trouble you, nor let your face be changed. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of your father light, understanding, and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, was found in him, whom your king Nebuchadnezzar, your father, the king, I say, your father, made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding and interpreting dreams and showing of hard sentences and dissolving of doubts were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show you the interpretation. Then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, Are you that Daniel which is of the kingdom of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? I have heard of you, that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in you. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, and they should read this writing, and make known unto me the interpretation thereof, but they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of you, that you can make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now if you can read the writing, and make known to me the interpretation thereof, you shall be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, Let your gifts be to yourself, and give your rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known to him the interpretation. You, O king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father a kingdom and majesty and glory and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whom he would kill, he killed. Whom he would, he killed. And whom he would, he kept alive. And whom he would set up, and whom he would, he set up. And whom he would, he put down. When his heart was lifted up, and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from the kingly glory, from the kingly throne, and they took his power, his glory from him. He was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was like the wild asses. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and he appoints over it whoever he will. God puts these politicians in power, and if we want better politicians, we better be more obedient to the Bible. That's how this works. Garbage rulers for a garbage society that does not obey God. And you, his son, O Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this, but you have lifted up yourself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before you, and you and your lords, your wives and your concubines, have drunk wine in them, and you have praised the gods of silver and gold, of brass, iron, wood, and stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know, and the God in which hand your breath is, whose are all your ways, you have not glorified. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the writing that was written. Mene, tekel, upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. Tekel, you are weighed in the balances and are found lacking. Peres, the kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. This is the second kingdom. The head of gold and the shoulders and the chest of silver. So this is the second one. The kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet and put a chain of gold about his neck and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. And that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, killed. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old, so about 62 years old. So Daniel told him, your kingdom is coming to an end. God has judged you, your kingdom is over. And he was like, well, if I give you gold and honor, God's going to have to give me some more time, right? Nope. When God says you're out of time, you're out of time. So get right with him with the time you got left, because, this world is something else. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. And this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him up over the whole realm. The presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God, the Torah. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king, and said thus unto him, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, and the princes, the counselors, and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of you, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it be not changed, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Neither does God altereth his law. When God says something, doesn't matter if he said it to Abraham 4,000 years ago, doesn't matter if he said it to Moses 3,500 years ago, doesn't matter if he said it through Christ 2,000 years ago. If God says something, that's it. It never changes. Therefore, King Darius signed the writing and the decree. And when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in the chamber towards Jerusalem. So this is how we're supposed to pray. King Solomon told us this in 1 Kings chapter 6 and 7, I believe it was. Or maybe it was 7 and 8. So you're supposed to pray on your knees facing Jerusalem, facing the Temple of Solomon. That's how you get mercy from God. He kneeled upon his knees facing Jerusalem 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did before time. And these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Have you not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, except for you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, The thing is true according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which alters not. They answered and said before the king, that Daniel, who is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regards not you, O king, nor the decree which you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. And the king, when he had heard these words, was sore displeased with himself, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men assembled unto the king, and said to the king, Know, O king, that the law of the Medes and Persians is, that no decree or statute which the king established may be changed. Then the king commanded that they brought Daniel, and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake, and said unto Daniel, Your God whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. And a stone was brought, and laid upon the mouth of the den, which reminds me of the tomb of Christ. And the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and the sleep went from him. And the king arose very early in the morning, and went in haste unto the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is your God whom you serve continually able to deliver you from the lions? And said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel, the angel of the Lord, Jesus, again, the angel, the Son of God, in chapter 2, chapter 3. They threw the 3 men in. They saw the 4th man. He looked like the Son of God. And then Nebuchadnezzar says, God sent his angel to protect you. God sent his angel, the angel of the Lord, the messenger of God. This is Christ. My God has sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths. They have not hurt me. For as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before you, O king, have I done no hurt. Then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. And the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives. And the lions had the mastery of them, and brake all their bones in pieces, or ever they came to the bottom of the den. So breaking the bones into pieces, that's something that happens later in this book. Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell on the earth, Peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivers and rescues, and he works signs and wonders in heaven and in the earth, who has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So this is I think this is a good place to stop. Book of Daniel is very important, and the last half of it gets with the end times prophecies like crazy. The last half of the book of Daniel and the book of Revelations, it ties in so perfectly together. So, shalom, my brothers and sisters in Christ. May God have mercy on us all. Amen.